welcome to another NMRAX event. Tonight it's Ask the Master Model Railroader, or it'll be Ask the Master Model Railroaders, plural, because I've got five great Master Model Railroaders with us tonight from really all around the globe. There's a heavy undertone of Texas, but there is also some Australians to balance this out, so it should be really, really good. I just want to say welcome to some of our listeners. Hi to Ted. Hi Alan Pollock. Andy Ambrose. Nice late night for you, but appreciate you being here. Tony. Hi. Bob in Tallahassee. Hi. And Christina's also popped a little question in there. So before we do introductions, a few people put some questions in beforehand today as requested. But we're still looking for questions. So if you have a question, you need to make sure you're in the stream either on YouTube or on the NMRA Facebook page. And I need you to pop a comment into the stream, and it will come through to me in the studio or Gordy's workshop, and I'll put the question to the Master Model Railroaders, and we'll go from there. Okay. So a few familiar faces, a few new faces, but we have our familiar face. We'll go to Jerry. We have no Tom tonight, Jerry. I'm sorry, but we'll go over to you first and let you introduce yourself. Just unmute.
Okay, I'm Jerry Hopkins. I'm in Australia, 100 kilometres north of Sydney on the beautiful Central Coast. My MMR number is 177. I have 10 of the AP certificates. The one I don't have is scratch building locos. At the moment, I'm the regional AP manager, and I look after emailing all members. I send out regular emails to the total membership, remind them what's on and what's not on. I've been editor of our regional magazine for 10 years. I gave that up. And last year I gave up looking after our web page. I've been doing it for 15. So I've handed it over to a younger fella. And he was in nappies when I first met him, because I've known his father for a very long time. So, yeah, I can trust him. I know he's okay. And that's me. I model HO, Great Northern. And I have a theme park of the Sandy River and Rangeley Lakes at HON 2.5. That runs at one section of the layout. And that's about it from me.
Cool, thanks, Jerry. Okay, I'm just going to say hello to a few more people before we go to somebody else. So, hello to Adam Panelist. Adam, it's Saturday, so you're probably on the train somewhere or you're on vacation, but Adam is a conductor on the California Zephyr for Amtrak. And we have Richard Dahl, who has said, never mind Tex-Mex, but this is Oztex. It is Oztex. It's a whole new delicacy. We have ground kangaroo for you later on the menu. We have Dave Wolf, hi from Maryland. And we have Robert Thomas saying howdy from Texas. And Richard Dahl says hello from South Dakota. So, cool. Keep those questions coming though, guys. So, who wants to go next? We'll go to Arthur. We'll stay in Australia and then we'll cross the pond.
Okay, my name's Arthur Hayes. I live in Brisbane, Queensland, which is probably 600 miles north of Jerry. My MMR is 582. Certificates is cars, structure, scenery, prototype, electrical, dispatcher, author, volunteer. I'm the AP rep here for Division 1 in Queensland. I assist the Div Super. I've probably got an unofficial title called Assistant Div Super, which probably doesn't count for anything. But I passed chairman for a regional convention. I model the local prototype, which is Queensland Rail. It's HON 3.5. I also model the southern state of New South Wales in HO. So on my layout, I have the both systems.
Cool. Welcome, Arthur. So, to there's our first two master model railroaders. Great guys. Let's get some questions coming in. There might be some questions just there specific about the things that Arthur and Jerry model. So we're going to go to Texas. We're going to do my best to work around Texas the way I think it logically geographically goes. So we're going to go to John first, and then we'll go to Mike and Dwayne afterwards.
Well, thank you, Gordy. My name is John Lowrance. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and that's we call it South Texas down here, just south of Austin. I'm MMR certificate number 150. I'm down there with all the red line guys, the ones that are dead. So I've been doing it for a while. I got my certificates in a lot of the building things, structures, cars, loco, scenery, the civil engineering, association volunteer, and author are the ones that I hold. I model in HO primarily. I modeled in O scale for some time when we were building Laurel Joyner's Great Southern Railroad in O scale down here in San Antonio. Did a little ON3 when Miles Hale was living here, and did that. Built railroads professionally for a while with Miles after I retired from my real world job. And right now I'm associated with mostly modeling at a railroad club, San Antonio Model Railroad Club here. And so I've kind of changed my modeling preference from Pennsylvania, which is what I started with, to some of the local railroads, mostly the MKT and Southern Pacific, Missouri Pacific railroads. Is kind of what I'm doing. That's about it.
That's great. Thanks, John. So we'll go, just because it's the order you're on my screen, we'll go to Mike, and then we'll go to Dwayne after Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hey, guys. My name's Mike Mackey. I am in Fort Worth, Texas. My MMR number is 573. I have got all of the certificates right now with the exception of prototype modeler and motive power, and I'm currently working on those to finish those out. I have served in the Lone Star region as associate membership chair, and then was elected director of the Cowcatcher Division, Division 1, which is where the NMRA started in the Lone Star region. We've got a very, very active region. We've got a lot of different jobs that are all filled and backed up with our members. We've got 168 members in our division here, and my division runs from DFW Airport down the middle of Dallas-Fort Worth, north to the Texas border, south to just above Waco, and west out to Abilene. It's about the size of the state of South Carolina. I have been a convention chair in 2016 for the regional convention, and this past NMRA National approved a bid for us to be hosting the 2023 National Convention. And I, along with Donna Orr from Division 3 over in Dallas, are going to be co-chairs of that particular event. So it's we're looking forward to promoting that. And we want to, if you've got any questions about that you want to ask at the end of the thing, maybe Gordy will let us do that. But one thing, Gordy, I did want to share with you, you mentioned Austex, and I wanted to show you that there is an Austex chili that is there, and that's a brand here in the United States. So you're all good, and we already got you covered, brother. Okay.
Is that with or without kangaroo?
This one probably without kangaroo, but it does come with or without beans. So I'd let you have your choice.
That's awesome. All right, thanks, Mike. So the questions are coming in. Just a few more hellos. Hello to Ken Mason. He says hi to Dwayne, and also to you, Mike. And we've got Trudy in San Diego. Hi to you. We've got somebody following from Sweden. I don't get the name there, but hi to you too. And that's great. So we'll go to our final MMR on the panel, but by no least the final person here. This is great. We go to Dwayne. Hi, Dwayne.
Hi, how you doing, Gordy? My name is Dwayne Richardson. I am MMR number 391. I live in the Dallas, Texas area, so I'm about an hour east of Mike. I live in Division 3, so we cover the other end of North Texas from what Mike does. As far as the AP goes, I hold everything except prototypes, structures, and motive power. I have had both structures and prototype modeler kind of sitting in the bank now waiting for about the last up to about a year ago. My father was the national AP chairman. He's MMR number 345. We were the first father-son pair of MMRs. And I've been kind of sitting on those while he was in office, but I'm going to be getting those judged as soon as we get past this COVID virus stuff. And that'll leave me 2/3 of motive power to wrap them all up. Within the region, I have been a division director or director at large for about 11 or 12 years. I was our contest room chairman for 6 years. I was our webmaster for about 12 years, and I've been our achievement program chairman for the last 6. I model primarily in HON3, but I also model in SN3 when I model with my club, the North Texas Narrow Gauge Group.
Hey, Gordy, if I could, it's thanks to Dwayne that I'm modeling now dual gauge, standard gauge, and narrow gauge. He twisted my arm and got me to go to the dark side of HO scale and start modeling narrow gauge.
That's like HO with a bit of N scale?
No, this is the HON3. It's narrow gauge, so it's HO scale that knows somebody.
No. The expert on narrow gauge is, I think, Mr. Arthur, who not only worked on the real railroad, but actually models it as well. But we can maybe touch on a bit of that, Arthur, later in the evening. So let's move on to some questions. We've got Gordon there, another Gordon, fantastic, in New Zealand. Hope you're having a fantastic winter in New Zealand. It's the longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere today, so it's probably the shortest day of the year in New Zealand. So we've got Jim as well in Minnesota, and we'll go to Arthur. I think Arthur had his hand up there to say something. Yeah, did you? Yeah, we'll go to Arthur.
No, yeah, just agreeing that it's the shortest day down here for us. That's right.
Good, and it's still warmer than Orkney, so you're doing really well. So, first question came in from Eduardo, who's been an NMRAX clinician in a previous month, and he, I know, has been trying to understand how best to design and print, 3D print HO scale people. I know Mike is a big 3D printer, so maybe we'll go to Mike first and then see who else wants to answer. Mike,
I'd be happy to answer that, Gordy. I actually have an author. You and I are kindred spirits. I worked for the Cotton Belt and Southern Pacific for 10 years myself, so we both got some one-to-one scale opportunities there. I work for a company currently in charge of sales and marketing for a company called Polyprinter. We build and manufacture printers just in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And in talking to someone with regard to 3D printing, I will tell you right now that people are the hardest thing at all to print, especially in scales smaller than O. Now, if you're printing in the larger scales, you can normally do something, but think about how many different facets of a face there are, and how many different angles there are on a body, or even the clothing that someone's wearing, and that's really difficult to replicate in a 3D print environment. Unless you've got a 3D scanner, then you're really going to be out of luck when it comes to start trying to draw something in 3D. And then I would also challenge you that you would want to make sure that you're using the right kind of printer for the right kind of job. You can get something printed off at a commercial printing company. There are several of them out there. Probably the most prolific known out there is Shapeways. And they have printers that are several thousand, if not several hundreds of $1,000s worth of technology and cost. The more expensive the printer, the better the quality. Many times you will not get the quality you're looking for in a human being or a person or even an animal for that matter in a filament printer. You're normally going to have to go to a liquid resin printer. You will also not get that in a printer that's probably less than, I would say, $3,000 and up for a printer to be able to come across with what you're looking for. There's a pros and cons. If you'd like to contact me directly, I can be able to answer those questions for you. Gordy, are we supposed to give out our contact information, or are you going to be doing that later in the show?
We don't, but Eduardo's just replying to you actually now in the chat. He's saying he doesn't have a 3D scanner, but I can use it. I just can't see the bottom of the message. It's just not quite come through on my screen. But he's got access to one. So yeah, Mike, if you go to the Lone Star, but can use a photogrammeter. I don't know what a photogrammeter is, but
our URL for the Lone Star region is lonestarregion.com, all spelled out. And if you didn't want to link it that way, you can go to the NMRA regions page and then link to it that way. And then my name and Dwayne's listed there as well. John's not on our regional board anymore, but his would have been listed there in the past, but he's not there right now, but Dwayne and I are. So I hope that answered your question, Eduardo.
Yeah, that does. And I think, Eduardo, that's a clinic you can give later, what you've just put in the chat. You can talk to me about that later. So the other piece, I can give you a little bit of advice there. If you go and look at a company called Model U, that's model with a U on the end of it. They're a UK-based company, and they go to trade shows and 3D scan people and then print them out as 3D figures in whatever scale you want. Kathy Millat has done that and stuff, so go check them out. They're really good. Dwayne, do you want me to go to you, or was that no?
Nah, just saying that's a great idea. Something Mike and I discussed about a year or so ago was something along.
Oh, we lost Dwayne. Okay. Dwayne maybe hit the wrong button. We'll get Dwayne back. Don't worry. But yeah, there's people in the UK with 3D scanners and stuff. So hopefully Martin can unlock the room so we can get Dwayne back. Hey, we're back. Sorry, Dwayne. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying Mike and I had kind of discussed a very similar idea. So I'm glad somebody's picked that ball up and run with it. It's be very cool to have yourself on your own layout, you know.
Yeah, and if you watched NMRAX last week, there was, I'll come to you in a sec, Jerry spotted you. If you watched NMRAX last week, there was a clinic by David McLaughlin, ex-British region president, who has had himself scanned holding one of his scratch-built models of a church in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, and he has put that model on his HO scale structure. So it's definitely possible, but the model you guys have commercial grade 3D printers. It's not something you can buy off Amazon. So just bear that in mind. You may need to, invest a bit of time with Shapeways. We'll go to Jerry.
Okay, about the scanning and printing, the AP chairman for our Division 8, which is halfway between myself and Martin, they do scan the people and print them out, and there's another guy in the area who paints them, and they're absolutely brilliant. Predominantly O scale and larger, but they've done S scale and a few HO, but they don't get much call for that in HO because people can't see what your face looks like in HO unless you're up close. So yeah, but yeah, we've got someone who's doing it, and he does a brilliant job.
People don't want to see what my face looks like in 1:1 scale, never mind in HO. Okay, thanks, Jerry. Okay, next question. So this question's a little bit, was a prepare in advance, so I did send this question out. So if you prepared something, now's your time to share. And this question came in, and it was from Mike O'Donney in... where are you, Mike? You're in California, and Mike asked for: is there any examples that you can give where you could talk about the evaluation sheets for one of your models that earned a merit award, and discuss or share with either the points that it got or the comments where the assessors said you may be able to improve the model. So that was your homework in advance, and you've only had a few hours to do it. I don't know whether anybody has any examples to hand. I think John does, but we'll see. Yeah, we can go to John first while Dwayne goes through his boxes. So we'll go to John.
Well, mine was some time ago, and what I found to start with was, rather than go do all the work for the merit award judging, unless you're in a place where you can't get to a convention and a contest, it was just as easy to enter the contest and fill out the contest sheet, which essentially becomes the same kind of thing that we did. So when you asked the question, I thought I had one particular structure that I entered in both the regional and the national contest. Should I share that now? A picture of that, Gordy? Is that okay?
Absolutely, I think you should, and Martin will pop that up as full screen.
Okay. All right. I can. Okay. I guess I'm still on. It's interesting. You know, this particular model is 100% scratch built. The only commercial part on it are the nut and bolt castings, and there's hundreds of those. It's complete with an interior. And interestingly enough, at the regional convention, and you have to remember this is oh gosh, I can't remember, 1970 something. Most of the people weren't doing any kind of weathering on the structure at all, and the signage on the structure was something that I had to come up with. So I was able to get almost maximum construction points. This model got 40. It's the only time I've ever gotten an entire 125 on a model. And then on detail, the interior of this is complete as well, and there are rods between each of those nut and bolts that you see. There's rods running diagonally through the entire interior of this thing, but it was all done individual boards. There's an inside set of boards and an outside set of boards. I also had to, so they gave me 10 points on detail. Like, what is it? No. No, I think it was 25 points on detail. And then on conformity, because it was a model of an actual structure that had been featured in Model Railroad Craftsman magazine, and I had photos that I submitted with it. So they gave me maximum points on that. And then finish and lettering, I made note of the fact that all the signs were painted, and basically how I did that was paint the sign on the wood, tape the wood down, paint the sign on the wood, and then number the back of the boards, and then unconstruct it and individually weather each of the boards so that I would get the lines and things, because each piece of wood sheds paint with its own rate depending on what kind of sap level it has and all kinds of other issues. So they were able to give me a maximum points on that because that was a brand new technique. And then scratch building, because there was absolutely nothing in there except the things, I got a maximum points on that. I think people that go to contests, though, ought to understand that when I took this to the national convention in Atlanta years ago, my points dropped from 125 to 105. But then again, in those days, there would be hundreds and hundreds of models in the contest. So I think today you have a little bit of an advantage because there are fewer models and the judges are starting to give you some feedback and comments. In those days, you got no comments or feedback. The only way you did is if a judge happened to be in the contest room and you were able to just ask them personally about it. But gives you a feel for what kind of modeling you have to do. I think another interesting thing about these contest sheets and everything is as you build the model, and I got this advice early on, but as I built the model, I kept a log basically of what was going into it, how many pieces of this, how many pieces of that. The other thing that was kind of unique at the time was to come in here where the roof is and put the rotted shingles and the weather damaged roof on there. But the log then enables me to fill out the sheet. And so for the people that are building, I think it's good advice to pass on that, keep that record as you're building it, because when you're done, you won't remember all of this stuff. And maybe you can, I certainly couldn't. The other thing, the other bit of advice that I got early on, and I think it's still appropriate, is that you really need to decide whether this is a model I'm building for a contest or I'm building for my merit for the achievement program, or is this what Miles and I used to call production modeling, where I'm building it for the layout. And on the layout, I certainly wouldn't put all that interior work into it. If it had an interior, I might only do the interior parts that face the aisle that a visitor could see. Whereas for a contest, pretty much if I'm going to do an interior, I pretty much need to do the entire interior. So these are just a couple of things that I think people have to think about when they're doing it. There is some extra work involved in getting that merit or getting that certificate or getting the contest win. And many of my models did not win the contest. This one happened to place in Atlanta, but it wasn't good enough for Best of Show. So, I think you have to kind of say that's not what I'm doing it for necessarily to win a contest, but a contest certainly gives you a good feedback on it. And the judging in the contest, I think, is just as difficult or as critical as the judging you would get in a merit certificate. I probably talked too long about that.
No, that was really good. That was very insightful. Does anybody else have another example? Dwayne? We'll go to Dwayne. If you could just stop sharing, John.
The show off mostly was, I want to hold it up here and then I'll switch to my overhead camera. This is a diorama that I did. We had a special category in our contest in 2016 that our contest room chairman cooked up, that it had to be something that fit into a square foot, so 144 square inches. And it was kind of like the TV show we have here on the Food Network here in the States called Chopped, where they challenge you to build, make a chocolate cake out of the contents of this picnic basket kind of thing. So on this, you had to have something blue, a window, an oil can, a tree. There were 6 different requirements on it at any rate. And so this was my entry into that one. It was lucky enough to win that particular category. It won displays. It did not win Best of Show, but it did place very well. Some of the comments I got back was the red on the blacksmith car back here. I had tried a stain only on it, and the complaint was, and I had the same complaint too, is that you can kind of see the wood grain, and it runs across boards basically because this isn't board by board siding. So this is one of those, had I do it over again, yeah, I'd probably put this one board by board. And typically, because I do a lot of interior work when I'm doing models for contest and AP judging as well, I like to do a lot of interiors, a lot of board by board construction. The some of the stuff that John said is very true. When you start talking about contest versus AP, they're not the same animal. We typically go by the same rule sets, but the judging is still a wee bit differently. And there are house rules in different regions and things that you have to worry about. This next one here I want to show off real quick is my version of the Alamosa trash gun. This is built in HON3. It is completely scratch built, save the Microtrains HON3 underframe that I got directly from Microtrains. Basically, it was meant for one of their CNS reefers. But I wanted to get one of those because the trash gun was actually built as Connex flat car number 6. It was underneath a tank. And it has the CNS outside brake hanger and all of that their reefers featured. So I contacted a friend of mine that worked there, and they were kind enough to let me buy just the parts and pieces that I needed, and then I built the trash gun on top of it. But all of this siding is board by board. All the stake pockets are board, stakes are board by board, individual MBWs on it, all the rust and everything on the inside. It's how far down the rabbit hole do you really want to try to go when you start working through a model project? And John hit it right on the head. You have to ask yourself, what's the final destination of this model? Is it the foreground on my layout? Then it needs to be highly detailed. Is it heading for the contest room and then eventually the foreground on my layout? Again, highly detailed and maybe even more so. If it's a structure, should I have the roof removable? And chances are, if you're going into the contest room, and I don't know about y'all's regions, but here in Texas, you better be able to make that roof removable, and you better have all the details in it, because if you don't, you're probably not going to win. And it's kind of fun having bragging rights over your buddies for another year, but it's that extra level of detail that you have to stop to think about. If it's up against the backdrop, it doesn't need that much detail. So it's part of that whole smoke and mirrors. If the front's really detailed, the middle's fairly well detailed, the back doesn't really have to be, but your mind will tell you it's there.
Okay, cool. I think last response on this question will go to Mike.
Thanks, Gordy. First off, I want to say that it was Dwayne that first got me started to model things. I'd been in this hobby since I was 17. Joined the NMRA whenever I was approached in 13, actually 12. And at the 13 convention, Dwayne said, "You need to enter something in the contest room." And I said, "There's no way. I'm not about to let some rivet counter come out there and start questioning my model and picking it apart." He goes, No, you really should. You should really enter. And so I entered 3 models, 2 locomotives, and a bashed kit that I called it, because it was a Campbell's kit that had gotten crushed in a move from one location to another. Whenever it did, I had to totally rebuild it using all new wood parts and scratch building parts. So all 3 merited, and we have an award here in our region called the Participation Award, and it's the person who has attained the highest number of, Dwayne, help me out here, because you run that in the contest room for years.
You take all your meriting models and you add up the final score of those, and whoever scores the most points wins the Participation Award. And Mike got it that year.
First rattle out of the box, and I didn't realize what I had done until about a year and a half later. Dwayne was telling me, "Hey, dude, you really did something good." So I didn't realize what I'd done, but he has taught me, and the achievement program and the contest room has taught me to be a better modeler. And what I want to do is I want to share with you guys a particular model, and I'm going to let you see this model right here. This particular model, and if I can, I'll tell you what, I'll just do it this way. This is a tree house, and Dwayne and I worked on this tree house. When I say worked on it, he was consultant on it, but I did all the building on it. This tree house scored a 94, and Dwayne was one of the judges, and 2 other MMRs were judges on this in the contest room, I guess. But to me, I've found that details make all the difference in the world, and adding more detail gets you scratch building points. It gets you more detail and finish points. This is an 8x8 scale tree house, and it's hard to see it in there due to the lighting, but I will tell you that There is scale checkerboards on a crate in there with scale checkers on it. There are scale beer bottles that I turned by putting a toothpick into a Dremel and using the Dremel as a lathe, and I used a number 11 blade as a lathe, and I turned out beer bottles. If the boys had beer bottles in their tree house, they'd probably found their dad's Playboys somewhere. There are scale 1962 covers from Playboy magazine on there. There is a sign there on the front that said "No girls allowed," that I took an old picket fence gate and chopped it up. On the side there, you can see that they used any kind of scrap lumber that they could to build this treehouse. And when they did that, you see, 1 bys, 2 bys in whatever widths. You also see that they used orange crates, and there's orange crate labels on the front of it. They built a ladder. They've got their rope ladder there. That was all scratch built, and then it was put into the tree accordingly. It doesn't, and the reason I bring this up, you don't have to have some grandiose model that's huge to be able to make it merit. This is basically about 1 inch square. And if you do the work on it and put in the effort, you can certainly make it merit.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. We're just going to quickly go to John, and then we'll move on to another question.
Yeah, I think it's important maybe to say too that because there's probably an awful lot of people who are not really anywhere near doing this, a lot of beginners and people that are still concerned with just building a structure or a car or a locomotive or whatever, that to get into this achievement thing, you really don't have to start. Can I share a quick picture? This is the very first kit or item that I ever entered in a contest. It's a kit. It's a historical scale miniatures Queen Anne house kit. They're still available. I don't know what company they call themselves now, but it's a really very nice kit. But it's a paper kit. It's the way they used to build models back in the 20s and 30s. But I think the beginner should consider these kits and building these things almost like a lesson. So that was my lesson in how to do what they used to call Strathmore construction. And then I built some Campbell kits, and and I think each build a wood kit, build a paper kit, build a plastic kit or a styrene kit as well. But kind of consider each one of those as a learning tool to improve your modeling, because I will tell you the structures that I'm building now for the SAMRA Club are just way beyond what I used to build for these achievement program things. But they're production models. They're not meant, they wouldn't score maybe in a contest, nor do I care. It's kind of something I did as a learning thing, because someone told me a long time ago that if you get that certificate, you're going to learn how to build that stuff. And an awful lot of what I'm doing in our club, for example, we're beyond the square building. We're beyond the shake the box kit building. Everything is some kind of custom angle or a curve, a wall with a curve in it, because all those easy places have been taken up, and everything else is a custom structure or an actual model of a prototype structure that existed in San Antonio or Fort Worth or someplace at the time. So those, without the skills I learned doing these other things, I don't think I would be capable of doing the things that I'm doing now. So anyway, but that's my thought on that.
Thanks, John. So we'll quickly go to Dwayne, and then we're definitely moving on to another question just because of time. Go on, Dwayne.
Yeah, just real quickly. One of the things that John mentioned, and I had a modeler tell me this here a while back. I asked him, I said, he brought some pictures in of some things he had on his home layout. And I said, oh, you see, you've built a couple of Campbell kits. And he goes, yeah. I said, well, are you going to join us for our scratch building clinic? We're going to be starting next week. He goes, oh, I can't scratch build. I said, but you've built a Campbell kit. And he goes, well, yeah. I said, it's the same thing. The only difference between a Campbell kit and scratch built is Leo put the wood, cut it up, and dropped it in a box for you. That's it. You didn't go down to the train store and buy it. You bought it in a box. That's the only real difference. The process is the same. If you're capable of building that, you can scratch build.
Cool. Okay, guys. So let's just say hello to a few new people that have joined us. Let's say hello to Ron from Ron Trains and Things. You see, promoting Ron. If anybody is devoid and has watched all the NMRAX videos, I suggest you get over to Ron's channel and subscribe to Ron's channel and go and watch some great content over there in the world's greatest scale, of course, N scale. So go check out Ron's YouTube channel. We could say Martin's back in the room. Hopefully that's not because something's broken. We say good morning. Oh, he's gone again. He's back again. He's gone again. AML. Let's come into AML. We'll come to that later. We'll give some more shout outs to a few other people as well. So John Hennessy says good day to Jerry. So does Laurie McLean, MMR. Martin says good day to Laurie. Hey everyone, everyone's saying hello, 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 hello. Okay, cool. David, great question. We're going to have to come to that. So a bit of lightheartedness. So Adam Panelist, our conductor for Amtrak on the California Zephyr, our real life railroader who also models in F scale, 7.5 inch gauge, and not N scale anymore, now HON 3, I think. So quite a prolific modeler. Yep. He asks, he believes that being an MMR is very attractive to the opposite sex, or to men, or ladies, whatever. Okay, so what I want to know is, does your significant other consider your MMR as one of the reasons that you've not yet been divorced? So who's going first? Dwayne.
Years ago, I was sitting back in a back bedroom and I was working on a model of a trestle, and my wife comes walking down the hall and I hear her coming, and I turned around in my chair and she said, you know, we never talk anymore. And she turned around and walked off. I took that as a hint that I was in trouble. And I put everything down, came into the living room, and we were watching TV together and talking. And she's sitting on her corner of a couch working on some cross stitch. And she got up to go take care of something. And I got to thinking, well, she's got her hobby in the living room. Maybe I should put mine in here too. So she walks back in. I've got my tape measure out and I'm measuring a spot in our living room. And she goes, what are you doing? I go, it'll fit right here. And she goes, what will? I said, my modeling bench. She goes, what makes you think you're bringing that in here? I said, you said we never talk anymore. You sit on your corner of the couch and you do your hobbies. Well, we'll probably talk more and watch more TV together if I've got my modeling bench over here. I am sitting in my living room in this mess of a modeling area right now, and I've had it in here for the better part of the last probably 15 to 16 years. Best thing I ever did for our marriage, ever. I mean, I've played in bands, I've raced cars, I was an athlete. No, it doesn't attract girls at all, but it definitely has helped keep our marriage in check. I mean, we get to enjoy our hobbies together and enjoy our TV shows or whatever together, and we chit chat while we work, and it really has been a nice thing. I mean, she tolerates what I do very nicely, and it's been a real blessing.
All right, let's go to Jerry Hopkins next.
Two days ago, a gentleman put a video up on YouTube that was taken in 1985 at the Newcastle exhibition. That's about 50 miles north of where I am. And a lot of the people in there I recognize. And there was one layout which I recognized. It was my own Franklin County. And there alongside me was this good-looking redhead, my wife. I was into model railways before I met her. This is the second marriage. And she's always been part of it. And we found at exhibitions, people would ask her questions about the layout before they would ask me. It's just that being an MMR or, the male in the group, you tended to be an authority, and they preferred to ask the lady who wouldn't think of them as stupid. It was just a strange PR thing, but over the years we met so many people, and looking back at that video on YouTube, there's a lot of people on there that I know, and yeah, it's just part of the thing. Loris is accepted as one of the boys in our local club. You know, they talk to her as much as they talk to me quite often. So yeah, I don't know
Thanks,
about
Jerry.
attracting females. I've never had to try.
Thanks, Jerry. All I'm going to say is that I'm going to prove to you tonight that being an MMR results in getting asked questions, okay? That's the whole reason you're here, okay? All right, John, we'll go to John.
Well, that whole question is a bit of a joke. If you want to get chicks, get a guitar, not trains. But if you want to get a good, solid relationship with a good woman, trains are great. I'm reminded of my friend in Houston, Gil Freitag, who's built this fabulous railroad, the Stony Creek and Western. And when I went there the first time, right, Mike? Yeah. Went there the first time. There was a workbench, a big desk, right in the back behind the couch where the family sat. And Gil always said, instead of going and hiding and building my models in my, railroad room, I build most of it right down here in the living room so I can be with the family, and that's kind of what Dwayne's talking about, I think, too. It's a great family hobby, and later on, that woman will appreciate that you're down in the basement or something with trains instead of out at a bar with your guitar. So that's what I got to say about that.
Cool. We'll go down to Mike.
John, you hit the nail on the head. And Virginia is a beautiful woman, and she is also in charge of our non-rail for our region. She does great work, and the Freitags are almost royalty where our region is concerned. And Jerry, like you, my wife, I was playing trains, if you will, before we met. But I will tell you that my wife has accomplished twice what I have yet to accomplish, entering stuff in the contest room. She's won 2 back-to-back best of shows. And I had never gotten there, but she's done it on the craft side and won best of show twice with 2 different quilting projects that she's done. So she's starting to enjoy our hobby as well as me doing some modeling with it and sharing that hobby with me as well. So I'm very grateful and very thankful that I've got a woman that supports what I do.
Okay, Arthur, we'll give you the opportunity to respond, and then I'll sum up your answers.
Yeah, I wouldn't be game to bring my workbench up into the living room or lounge room. I'd be evicted within 30 seconds. But my wife has got an interest in art, so has worked a fair bit on the layout and done a little bit of scenery, and has even given presentations at conventions on building jacaranda trees. So yes, it can be a hobby for everybody, and you can get into it. But it's going out as winning a chick, I don't think you'd be in it. But yeah, it can be both in it. And I know a number of people who are the same with their wives, are a part of their hobby.
That's great. So what I heard from that as our feedback to Adam is that you're already married anyway, Adam, and you have a lovely wife and a lovely family. But if you think your MMR is going to attract the chicks, maybe not, but you should involve your wife more in the hobby. Therefore, you should put a tunnel straight through the wall of the house, run the 7.5-inch gauge right through the living room, straight out the other side through the kitchen, making sure that you have a walk straight out the other side of the house. If you can even park the locomotive right next to your bed in the master suite, that would be even better. That's our MMR advice for you on how to keep the wife happy. All right, great. Let's move back to some modeling questions while Adam plans that on any rail. We'll see the design later. So back to the modeling questions. This one came in from a member in the British region, and it was what techniques would you use to paint people for your layout? And do you have any tips for making them that little bit more realistic, such as dulling the colours? So this is painting figures for your layout. Who wants to take it? We'll go Mike. We'll go Mike, Dwayne, then John. So Mike first.
So first off, a very small brush. That's the first technique. All right. And the other thing is skin colors vary as much as anything. So take a your pastels or your acrylics, however you're doing this, and put them on a palette, a painter's palette, if you know what I'm talking about, one of those little things where you can mix up the color, or for that matter, a saucer, and then start getting different mixtures of the hues together and come up with different skin colors. If you're looking for skin, as far as the types of clothing and colors in clothing, that's all over the board too. Just look at the screen in front of you at all the different colors and clothes that the guys are wearing here that are on this forum. Go look as you walk in your local grocery store or shopping center at all the different colors. If you have to, take a picture of a distance of a group of people and then start mimicking the colors. I mean, it's all over the board. But again, I can't stress enough, a small brush. Okay.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo some of what Mike was saying there. Besides the colors and a small brush, obviously, that's kind of a given. You really want to try to mute your colors around. You want to, especially if you're doing larger scale figures, prime them in black first and then dry brush your colors back all over it. It'll really help set a lot of shadows down in all the little nooks and crannies, the folds of their clothes and things to that effect. That technique really doesn't work as well when you get down to HO, but in S and O and larger, it works out really well. You really want to try to dull some of that back a little bit through either washes or pastels, some of the weathering powders, but typically washes work a little bit better. But that's always the one thing that it's really two things that usually stick out that people have told me when they've looked at pictures of stuff that I've showed them or showed them my magazine articles. They'll look at them and go, the only thing that I realized it wasn't a real picture was when I realized it was a model was the people or the cars. So it's either the cars are too shiny or the people just they don't look. There's no depth to the paint job, and that's where a lot of the stains or something, or like say the black primer and dry brush back over it will kind of help with that. It'll give them a little more three-dimensional.
Cool, thanks, Dwayne. We'll go to John. Mike, we've lost your camera, so I don't know whether you've pressed a button, but we'll go to John.
Oh, thank you, Gordy. I tend to, with figures, I'm a big guy on figures. I tend to spray them with a flesh color to start with, and then I shade from there. I think it's important right now for people to remember that not all figures are white, and to have some variety in that. And what I like to do is you can take an egg crate, like a dozen eggs, those and those pockets that come in them, and paint a color or write a color on there. So I've got a white bin. So I might take and paint the flesh color first, face and what have you. And then what I'll do is I'll throw him into a white bin. And maybe she's going to go into a gray bin. And then when I get a bunch of those, I'll come back and paint white shirts or maybe white hair or whatever. And I'll do all that white, and I'll try to run through those colors in a fashion so that I have some organization to it. Because by the time you get through, you're looking at a color for the pants, a color for the shirt, a color for the tie, some accent colors. You got a hat, you got shoe colors. There's a lot of colors go into a figure to really do it right. Figures are one of my biggest, I don't know what you call it, complaints about the commercial industry. And there are so many good ones available. Now, I model the 50s. So I think good advice to just anybody that's getting into this is go back and look at some magazines and look at the colors, anything that's in color from that era that you're modeling, and look and study a little bit about what colors people actually wore back then, because the colors have changed. To see a workman digging with a pick in his hand and a pink shirt in Texas in the 50s, his life expectancy would be very short. So I think this is the kind of thing that we want to do, is do a little study on the colors that for your era that you did. Now, if you're into the 50s, I would say it's amazing to me. But if you go back and look at 90% of the figures from Pricer and some of those people, they're all wearing World War II and 50s era clothing. But today they're painted with pink shirts and colors that would never existed in the 50s. And when you go back and you repaint those figures to colors that were actually khakis and things that were actually used a lot in those days, it just totally changes some of those figures. They're marvelous. And with a little bit of shading on the face. Another thing on the face is a little bit of wash to kind of come in and fill that out. And remember this, there's a whole group of people who paint figures backwards. They paint them black and then they start adding and dry brushing the paint. So there's many, many ways to actually paint the figures. But boy, I think we all would probably agree that painting them sure beats the ones that you buy at the store.
See, I've seen pictures of the 1950s and the 1940s, and everyone's wearing black and white.
Yeah. Well, yes, so you're right. And the funny part about it is, never before were your nation and ours more united in thought after World War II. Everybody looks like they were wearing a uniform. If you look at a picture on a railroad station platform in 1955, they're all in suits and ties, the men are. And they all look alike. You only had so many choices of colors to wear as a man, you know. So your colors were very limited, which helps you if you're painting figures, because you don't have to paint quite so many wild and crazy colors. But yeah, it does look like a uniform, and people forget. You know, you've got to kind of, when you research your era, you kind of look at the styles and things that were going on. One of them was, even if you worked in a factory, you wore a suit and tie to work. Then you went to the changing room. You changed into a factory uniform. You did your job, and then you went and took a shower and put your suit and tie back on to go back home. It's the way it was. And modelers sometimes forget that if we're trying to model an era that we weren't raised in. It's a little tough.
All right, let's go to Australia, because I want to know how you paint your figures upside down and don't get the paint to run. So, Arthur, Jerry, anything to add?
Yeah, I don't paint them upside down. I paint them the right side up. I've just painted, I think, 80 figures. I built 2 new passenger cars, and I started putting figures in passenger cars. And once you put them in one, well, makes the others look rather ordinary. So lately, I've been adding passengers in the dining car, and when it's in that sort of environment, you don't have to be great in detail, because you're going to look at it through a window, and you're not going to see facial expressions. But I'm not real fashion conscious, and quite often I get sent back to the bedroom and say, you better change that shirt. So what I do is I've got a sheet of paper, and I've got a list of the colours that go together. So, and you know, there's certain colours back in the 50s and 60s that they sort of say should never be seen together. Well, I wouldn't be aware of that, but my wife is, and I get told. So I just got a little sheet of paper, and I write top, like it might have red over blue or something, and that's my guide on how to do it. And there's various combinations, and when I do them, I don't mind doing a lot, because I use, of late, I'm using the Valero range of paints for my figures, and little daub goes a long way. A 4-0 or a 10-0 brush. It's easy to change colour. Just have a little bit of water beside you, a bit of detergent, and drop here, drop there, and you might do the top of this one, the bottom of the next one. Then at the end, you might do their shoes and do their hair or something like that. And that's how I go about it. But figures, figures set a scene. I believe that they tell the story of that scene, and you choose your people or your figures so that relates to that scene and tells the story. That's how I go about it.
Thanks, Arthur. We'll go to Jerry and then we'll move on to another question.
A lot of the people on my layout were painted earlier on in the narrow gauge days, and they were all done by my wife. She does a brilliant job of painting the people. And there's another gentleman 5 minutes from me, Peter Jensen, and he was Pacific director for 4 years, so some of the Americans may know him. His wife does the same. She paints a lot of his trees, people, and builds his trees. So having the wife involved is very handy sometimes, especially if they're a bit craft minded.
That's awesome. So I have a little tip for people. If you want to go and get some advice on painting figures, go and look what the military modelers are doing, because they paint a lot of figures, a lot more than us, and they're usually a lot bigger than us, and they have to do the details and the shading and stuff in a lot more detail than model railroaders do. To be perfectly honest, the figures are generally, unfortunately, an afterthought for us. We don't look at them in too much detail because we tend to go, oh, train, and so it tends to be Alex that sees my missus that sees the figures on layouts, and I just avoid them. I just see the trains. Anyway, so that's a cool answer to that one. I've probably got more questions than we've got time for, but we'll just keep going and see how we go. So let's try and keep the answers short. I feel like the house speaker now. Let's try and keep the answers nice and short for the next few questions so we can get through a few. So that you can answer it for me. So not the guys on the panel. This is to get some more feedback in the chat. So you asked a question on how much of the MMRs spent on certificates. Do you mean dollars or do you mean time? So can you just let me know whether that was dollars or time and how much have they spent? I think there was a word missing to make a sentence.
How about bribes? Does bribes count?
I don't talk about bribes in public. Okay. This is not Texas now, or North Korea. So, okay, this is the question to the panel. What was the hardest thing you had to do in the AP program to get your MMR? So what was the thing you struggled with the most? Just call it out. Who wants to go first? Dwayne?
I think one of the things that really became a struggle for me was learning how to work with things I wasn't comfortable working with. I never would have dreamed of trying to make something out of brass when I started in the AP. For that matter, I probably didn't really think that much about using just even something simple as styrene for that matter. I was a wood guy and still am. But the achievement program made me learn how to do things differently. It made me want to learn different things, new techniques. I had done rust the same way for years, but I started looking at others. How can I do it better? And that's the number one thing I always tell everybody: get involved in the AP, because that's what it's going to do for you. It's going to make you want to go out and learn new techniques, new materials to work with, and it will make you a better modeler.
Cool. Thanks, Dwayne. Next, who wants to go next? I'm going to call you out, Jerry. Go on, Jerry. Jerry next.
Very similar to Dwayne. I haven't worked a lot with brass. I have done some, and I've built some DJH kits. And for those who don't know those, it's like building your own brass loco. They've got just a little bit more detail than some brass locos. But it's the only thing that I haven't spent time on. These days, I have spent too much time installing decoders for other people. So I just do not get time to sit down and spend a week building a loco. I will have to before long because I want to get that 11th certificate. But working with brass would probably be the biggest challenge. Wood and styrene I have no problems with, but brass, I haven't spent a great deal of time on it.
Cool. And Jerry, next time I'll prime you to mention our kits and not the competitors, but that's fine. You can mention my family's kits. They were wonderful to build and definitely more detailed than the ready-to-run brass models. Who wants to go next? We'll go to John.
Keep it real short. Basically, three things. One, starting to keep records on something that I never would have thought to keep records on, so that I could actually remember what I did and so on. The other thing I think is kind of what Jerry was talking about, learning to use new materials, kind of forcing yourself to learn to use new materials and start thinking of new things, new ways of doing things that might get you a few more points that someone else had never done. And then I think the third one that, and people don't really talk about this, is learning how to accept some criticism of what you're doing. And I think at some level we're all kind of a little afraid of that. And when you're first starting and you're not really too sure anyway, it's even scarier sometimes. So I think those are the three things that I had to overcome.
Okay, Mike.
I have to echo what John said, and I already mentioned this a few minutes ago. Getting over the hump to actually get started and enter a model to let somebody else look at it. Number one. The other thing that I'm working with now, and this comes back to what Jerry and Dwayne have already said, is working with other things. I've got 2 out of the 3 of motive power, and I'm working on the third one. And rather than try to go in and build a locomotive using styrene, I'm trying to improve my skill set, which is something that I wouldn't have done if I hadn't have started working in the AP program and learning this and becoming a better modeler. I'm learning how to draw in CAD so that I can print in 3D. And to me, that's an ongoing and a direction that the hobby's going. And it's something that I want to have in my toolkit, if you will, moving forward.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mike. We'll go to Arthur just for the last one to wrap this question. Oh, that was the camera. Just on me. There we go.
Yeah, the wrong button. Yeah, no, it's very challenging. The various things, like I wanted to do my dispatcher certificate, and like I shunted trains as a part of my working life for 45 years, and I was, well, how can I get a dispatcher? And it was sort of finding somebody around in where I lived that had operating sessions so that I could go and get my 10 hours for a dispatcher. And after a while, I did source a couple of places, and I was able to achieve it. And yeah, no, it's all very interesting. Like, even, I don't know if I can get that up, but that's a etched brass kit. Well, I've never sort of gone into that sort of stuff, and soldering is not my forte, but it's all sorts of things that sort of test you, and that brings you around to learning new skills. And I've got a couple more to do, and I'll be heading towards them.
And Arthur, the really interesting thing for you is that you got your MMR without modeling North American prototype. So everything that you've done is based on your Australian prototype, and not necessarily some of the wording and some of the things that happen in the North American prototype don't happen elsewhere. So you've had to overcome that, because the operating sessions and things like that, the different types of way that people model and all that kind of stuff. So how did you find that? Did you find it a challenge that you weren't modeling North American to get your MMR?
Well, see, basically there's no ready to run or structures for what I do. So everything I've got on the layout is virtually scratch built, and many of them are buildings that I've never even saw. So it was a matter of getting photographs out of archives and scaling them up and then making them fit on the layout, because, we're all aware that what we'd like on our layout and what we can put on our layout are two different things. So I've sort of had to. So it's been a long time. I've been modelling the scale since about 1972. So it's been a long road.
Cool, thanks, Arthur. So I just have an update, everyone, from Adam Panelist, who asked about his about ladies being attracted to being an MMR, and we gave him that solid advice of putting the layout through putting the 7.5-inch gauge through the living room. He says he's working on the track plan. A couple of things he may need some help with. One is a locksmith if Jen finds out, his wife, before he gets home. But no, all joking apart, he'd like to know if anyone's got any advice on how to prevent cinders from burning the carpet, and also good methods of smoke extraction from within the living room. So if anyone could provide some tips and advice, Dwayne, we'll go to Dwayne quickly. Dwayne may have an answer for that.
Go to an oil burner. Either that or just stick with a diesel. You'll never sit in a fire at the end with one of those.
There you go. All right. Okay, so we've got a few questions. I'm just probably going to just fire these questions at one per the first or second people that answer, and we'll keep moving them around because we're just going to be short on time. So 3D printed in N scale. What's the smallest detail part that anyone's had any success with? There's no N scales on the panel, but Mike's probably done something, so we'll go to Mike.
I've got a friend that models in N scale. He's helping with the panel right now. He's in the back room back there, Speed Muller, and he's making well cars, N scale well cars with grabs and rivets on them, and in 3D printing them. He is using a liquid resin printer to do that.
There you go. Cool. Okay, so the question about spending time or spending dollars was dollars. So the question is approximately how much have the MMRs do they think? This might be a bit difficult for John to remember. And also it was a long time ago. But how much do you think you spent on certificates to become MMRs? So let's say, how much do you think realistically it would cost somebody to complete now in 2020 their 7 certificates to become an MMR? Who wants to take that first? John, you had your hand up. Do you still want to have your hand up? We'll go to John first.
Just a quick comment about that. What you're going to find is that the more you scratch build, the cheaper it is. I don't care if it's track. I don't care if it's structures. I don't care if it's locomotives. It's cheaper to buy a bunch of styrene or brass pieces than it is to go and pay what the prices of some of the things today.
Cool. And Mike?
First off, no more than I would have spent on my railroad if I wasn't going for my MMR. Number one. Number two, just the other day, I went to a supplier and bought a 4x8 sheet of styrene. And actually, I bought one sheet in 010 and one sheet in 020, 4x8 sheet, and spent $11. If I was going to try to do that in Evergreen, how much would I have gotten for a little bitty package, and how many sheets would have there been? So, I'm not, again, no more than what I would have spent on my railroad without trying to be my MMR.
Go to Dwayne.
Yeah, I doubt anybody really kept track of how much we spent. I couldn't tell you. All I know is, Lord, let my wife sell them for what they're worth and not what I told her what I gave for them. But I will say this, John's right. If you scratch build it, it's much cheaper. And think about this, it depends on what route you take to go to MMR. If you're just going to look at getting started, I would highly, highly recommend you start with Prototype Modeler. Because if you pick the right prototype project, the work you do on that can count towards civil, electrical, scenery, structures, cars. Notice I've touched a little bit of everything here. Civil, electrical, for all your track work. If you pick the right subject, and my nephew was looking at this, we picked Rico, Colorado. It's on the Rio Grande Southern as a division point with a yard. Crossover, switches, a three-way stub. There's his 3 pieces he needed to hand lay for civil. There's enough trackage in the yard to finish it out. There's enough in there for electrical. I said, if you make this place big enough, you get 32 square feet. Since you're doing it in HON3, there's your scenery. If you build enough structures in there, and there's enough structures in there to nail down structures, there's enough places in there to put enough for cars. You write about it, you blog about it, do YouTube videos, get stuff published in your regional magazines and things. Send it up to the NMRA National. Get your stuff in the magazines and get it published. You could go from nothing to MMR on one project if you pick the right subject, and it could be done rather cheaply.
I just say that you should also consider doing NMRAX clinics. Okay, shameless plug. Okay, cool. So there you go. So it doesn't have to cost a fortune, and you know you can find materials lying around wherever you want to do. So some great tips there for costs and different bits and pieces. One bit of estate planning I will give you. Okay, we don't need to do a clinic on this. Simply what you need to do, fellas and ladies, is make a note of what you actually spent. Share the Excel spreadsheet with your friend, and then tell your wife to call that person if you pop it. It's as simple as that. That is the process in our house. Alex knows this. She knows exactly who to speak to. She phones Mr. Adam Panelist, and he'll sort it out. Okay, so it's all good. We all know what's going on. All right, so let's wind this back a little bit. Here's a really good question, and I think Jerry and Dwayne are going to be able to answer this question. Okay, and this question came in. It said, "How would you get your model assessed if you're unable to attend NMRA conventions or you live on a small, tiny island in the North Atlantic?" This wasn't me that asked this question. This was asked tonight. Dwayne, we'll go to you first.
There are some things that we've recently been approved to do remotely. Unfortunately, structures, cars, motive power are not part of that. The other is we can do via something like this. I mean, some of these new forums we have now with Zoom and things like that are wonderful for people who live out in the hinterlands, as they say, and gives you an opportunity to get in touch with somebody who can actually help you get your stuff evaluated. The rest of the stuff, we'll have to find a way to come out to you, or you come into us, or meet us in the middle. It's not odd for Mike and I to jump in a car and drive 4 or 5 hours out into West Texas to go judge something for somebody. So depends on who your AP people are. Usually they're willing to work with you as much as they can, but there are ways to get around it. If there simply is no other way to get around it, please get a hold of your regional guy, and he can get in touch with Frank, and they can work something out for you. Right now, for example, I'm working with a guy in Mexico City, so it's all in how you want to work it.
Okay, that's cool. Just gonna say, Dwayne, my understanding is that that the things that you can't be remote assessed for that you mentioned there was where you needed a merit award. If you just needed your structures verified for non-merit, you can do that remotely.
Yeah, the ones that are just the of like quality, the ones that don't have to be scored, yes, they can be done remotely.
Cool. And we'll go up to Jerry, and then we'll go on to another question.
Yeah, we have the problem of distance here in Australia. It's not unusual to have someone who's going to be 500 miles away to want something judged. Fortunately, we have enough MMRs in range for someone to call in there. Go back just about a few years, 10 years, when I was on the exhibition circuit, taking my layout to different cities and different states, and someone wanted something judged, I would arrange to call in there on my travels. And it's the same with some of the other guys who do the judging. They're going somewhere and they say, yeah, we can call in and do that. Or we know enough people capable of judging who can call in. We haven't had to do any remote judging so far. It's like Arthur, when I came up to Brisbane for a convention, and Arthur layout was on the layout tour. And I think he got about 4 APs out of that little trip. And there are a few other people, out to us going 100 Ks or 100 miles. It's just a drop down the street.
So our top tip there is that you should contact your regional AP or your divisional AP chair and ask for their advice on how best to get to you. Whether for all you know, they could be an AP assessor that is working in the week round the corner from where you live. So in the first instance, if you're not able to make it to a convention, you should speak to your region and division and see what they are. In most places in the world, there is a NMRA region. Canada, across the United States, obviously, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and Europe. So there should be a local division or region there that can help you. We're going to move on to another question. So this has come from the British region. Let me give you some context before you answer this. Dwayne alluded to this earlier in that there may be some regional deviation that you need to take into account when having a model assessed. Now, there is a myth in the British region that is perpetrated by people who are assessors. Okay, this is true because it's happened to me. In that if you in any way, shape or form use a craftsman kit as a structure, it will not get a merit award because it was a kit. Can we just respond to that question? Is this true? Could this person who asked this question, they've specifically called out a Carolina Craftsman kit, could they use that to get an AP award, a merit award at AP? Dwayne, we'll go to you first.
Certainly. There is, and then I want to stress something here. There are no regional differences. There are, when it comes to the AP, we all play by the same rules, so there should be, let me put it that way, no regional differences. But no, you can build anything and get it to merit. The trick is going to be when you start with a Craftsman kit, so much is already in the box. So what I would recommend you try to do is take the plans, scratch build it, put in your own detail parts, get that one judged, and then put the kit on eBay. But you can build the kit and you can get it to merit. I mean, you're just going to have to do a lot of extra work. You're going to have to take the kit that was probably never designed to have an interior and put an interior in it. There's going to be all these extra steps you're going to have to go to. And some Craftsman kits, and especially laser stuff, and since I make laser kits, I can tell you, it's a real challenge to plug an interior into something if they've designed it with a lot of internal structure to help keep the sides braced and things like that. So that right there ups the difficulty. It ups the detail points and things to that effect. So yes, you can get it to do it. You're just gonna have to work hard.
John?
Well, I absolutely second what Dwayne said. There are very, very few kits, and really, in a sense, if you start with a fine scale miniatures or something, they've already done so much of that work for you. But if you start with well, when we're doing the modeling with the masters with Clark Kooning, we used to do a lot of DPM kits. They're beautiful kits, but there's so many things you can do. Certainly add the interior. You can add an awning. You can add a sign. Think about what you can add, and you'll get points for that ad. And particularly if it's something that not everybody else has done.
Cool. So I'm going to call out another YouTube channel, which is Jason Jensen. He takes Craftsman structures and kit bashes the heck out of them. And you will definitely score points for doing that. If you take 3 different kits from 3 different manufacturers and bash them into something completely new, as long as you get conformity right and don't just make up something that's alien, then you'll definitely be scoring points for changing that kit. Mike?
Just one thing to remember, if it was a kit and it's bashed, it's still a kit. Okay? So you're not going to get any scratch building points for a kit bash. Now you can, if you scratch built some parts to that and added it to the kit, that's a separate situation. But think about this: if in the merit scores, okay, you've got a category for scratch building. If you're only using a kit, you're already subtracting that number of points away from your maximum number of points right off the bat. So something to be considered.
No, but you can add points with construction. So you can add points elsewhere, but yeah, that's fine. We'll go to Dwayne.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, like John said, so much of the work has been done for you. So whatever you can do to build it so it doesn't look like it does on the box, the better. Because that's the thing is with so much of the stuff laser cut now, the construction isn't that difficult. And if you ever looked at the judging matrix, it starts off on the left side with how well did they do it and how hard was it to do, and it goes up. Well, if the construction wasn't that difficult because it was all done for you, you're not going to push that dial very far over to the right. And unfortunately, construction's a hard one to recover from if you tank in that one, because that's 40 points worth. And to what Mike said, if you don't scratch build anything on it, you leave 15 points on the table. You're now down to 110 maximum if you ace everything else. Now, 87.5 out of 125 is 70%. So theoretically, if it's a C- or better, it should merit, depending on what you do to it. But again, the more you can do to a kit to beef up the construction, to improve the difficulty, to add extra detail that didn't come with it, to kit bash it around so it doesn't look like it does on the box, the better off you're going to have getting that kit to merit.
Cool. And a related question, so we'll get some different people to answer this, probably in Australia, is if constructing a modern building, which doesn't tend to have very thick walls, how can you still add an interior but not underbrace the structure? Anyone got any tips for bracing a structure and putting an interior in it, Jerry?
Because the walls are thin on some of the buildings, you can also you can add internal framework and put an interior wall in, which is the way most buildings are done these days. That will make it stronger, and you can add the interior inside. I remember a kit, one of the John Allen buildings many years ago. It was beautifully detailed, but the wall was very flimsy. So I put the necessary structures inside, 2 foot apart and all the rest of it, and added an inner wall. And that made it very strong and allowed me then to put an interior and attach it without affecting the outer wall.
Mike?
If you're talking about a styrene model, okay, even buildings that are made in a modern environment that are prefab, a model of a prefab building, or something that would be a sheet metal type building, they still, if there's got an internal wall in there, add your bracing just like you would if you were really constructing it. Think about that. I mean, build it just like the regular building would be. One of the criteria is, and Dwayne taught me this years ago, if you built it, would it stand up? Would it function as a building? Okay. And that's going to be part of your conformity too. But if you need to help strengthen those walls, add your interior bracing of your studs, add an interior wall, things like that. And that actually helps with your scratch building points too, because you can add those things and those details.
We'll briefly go to John and then we'll move on because we're actually at our 1.5 hours, but I have a few more questions to ask. Go on, John. John, you're still on mute, mate. Just unmute for me. John, can you just unmute? John, can you just unmute? John, just unmute. You're just still muted. Just hit your spacebar, John. That'll unmute you. Just hold your spacebar. We should be able to hear you. Clicking Webby and unmute yourself. Can't hear you. Still muted.
All right, I've unmuted.
There you go. We can hear you now. Do you want to share something quickly?
Yes. In a large structure, the smaller structures really aren't a problem because by the time you put a floor into a 2-story building or the interior walls, those wall pieces will brace it adequately. When you get into larger buildings like this Scobie warehouse here in San Antonio, what I ended up having to do is use I-beam or use a square tube, and I would run that along the floors and use that then to support the floor structure. Another interesting thing too on some of these buildings, if you're building really big buildings, I don't build the entire interior. I might build a box and then take that box and apply it to the inside of the structure and then blacken out the other windows so that only certain windows within the structure have an interior, and if the lights are down, then those are the ones that also have a light bulb and so on.
Cool. Okay, so there's a quick question I'm just going to answer for you, which has been asked in the chat. It's been asked a lot of times before, and that is, if you design on CAD and then print and build a model yourself, you do all the parts of it. Even if you don't hit print, actually, there's rules to change. If you do all the design work, the design file does not get adulterated by anybody else before it's printed. You don't have to physically own the printer. You can outsource the printing, but the person who you outsource the printer to can't change the file. Then yes, it does count as scratch. Okay, so that is the rule. It's clearly on the AP pages on the NMRA's website. Okay, so I'm going to move on to some questions just briefly before we do that. Just a reminder to everyone: if you want to support NMRAX and everything that we're doing here, get yourselves over to daylightsales.net. So daylightsales.net. Grab yourself a t-shirt, grab yourself a hoodie, sweater, sweatshirt, depending where you are, jumper if you're in certain parts of the world. Everything that you buy supports the NMRAX, and some proceeds go back to the NMRA. So please do that. If you're not a member of the NMRA, we promote everyone to join the NMRA, take part in the achievement program, take part in all the other programs that we've got on. You want to see the benefits of membership, go over to the nmra.org and you can click on membership and it will show you all the benefits. You can also take cost savings from our partnership program, where we've got now I think it's well over 40, it's nearly 50 people on their way. They'll give you a discount for being an NMRA member. So, whoa, loads of questions suddenly started blasting in. So we're not going to get through all of those. But I have a couple of questions here that I want to ask the panel because I think they'll be quite interesting to hear your answers. These are Gordy questions that I prepared in case nobody turned up. And just to let everybody know, there's been over 100 people watching this, so it's been very good. So, question one from the Gordy list of questions was, how do you think that the lockdown has changed the hobby? Dwayne.
I think this might have been one of the best things that's happened to our hobby in a long time, as gruesome as that might sound to say, because it's given us this. This alone, I mean, we have seen and Michael attests to this too, as he's led his division in online meetings. We had ours for our division here earlier today. We are seeing people that we don't see come to our monthly meetings because it's too far for them to drive, but they're participating through these online forums. I have a group of friends that Mike is on. For those of you in Australia down there, Laurie McLean, a good friend of mine, is going to be joining us on those hopefully here soon. Exceedingly talented dude. But we get a chance to sit down on Tuesday nights for a couple of hours and just talk, and getting a chance to see your friends and talk to people, especially like Laurie. I mean, he's on the other side of the planet from me. I don't get much opportunity to chat with him, and not near as much as I'd like, for sure. And it's this wonderful ability to share with one another and talk to the people that we normally don't get to. Besides the fact, it's hopefully given a lot of time for people to get on their modeling bench, get their work done, and fill out their paperwork.
Mike?
To echo what Dwayne says, we've taken our division meetings and started doing those online. And the impetus of that was the NMRAX that Gordy started, that we've been trying to get off the ground for a long time now, but this was really an opportunity for really charge that program ahead. But we've started doing our division meetings. We have found that we had a zero drop in attendance from our face-to-face meetings to our online meetings. In addition to that, there were some divisions within our region that were not able to have meetings. John will know that the far West Texas region, they've got about, I want to say 22 members out there. And they're scattered all over hundreds of miles, much like you guys have in Australia. We have the opportunity now to, through the Division 1 online meetings, we've now invited that other division, and we've seen those members, about 50% of those members have started coming to our Division 1 online meetings. and which is tremendous. It gives an opportunity for members who were being underserved to, in fact, now be served, and have the opportunity to join online and join forums. The Tuesday night meeting that Dwayne and I referenced, there literally we've had people from Gordy. We've had a guy in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait City, California, Arizona, Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama, all on our Tuesday night little get together. So the thing that is so tremendous, and if anybody ever asks me why join the NMRA, it's because of the friends you make and the opportunities that will be afforded to you. And I can't stress this enough, but this is what's is made us all come together in these times of COVID-19 and being stay-at-home lockdown and things like that. So it still gives us the opportunity to interact with people I've never would have had the opportunity to interact with.
We'll go to John.
Well, I think this is probably the best hobby you could possibly have during this time. I know 8 people that have it right now, and they're all in the music area, a second hobby of mine. And that whole thing is shut down completely. I think the second thing that I would say that really good that's coming out of this, if there is such a thing, for the NMRA, because I've been a member since 1971. I think it's going to conventions. I mean, I know Mike, I know Dwayne, I know these guys because we've met at conventions and we've talked, and there is no substitute for that. But on the other hand, it's expensive to go to a convention. Even a local convention, a regional convention costs a bunch of money now. And I think one of the things that we've done with this, and it has to do with what you're doing right now, Gordy, is we've opened these things up to not just NMRA members, because we're essentially giving that person an opportunity to see what it's like at a convention. Only at a convention, it's in spades. I mean, you actually can talk to the layout owners and you can look at the stuff close up and you can do so much more. But this is the first chance for a lot of people to ever see what the rest of us have been seeing for many years and benefiting from.
That's great. We're going to go up to Jerry, but I just want to let Dwayne know that Laurie McLean is watching on YouTube and wanted us to let you know. Jerry?
Yeah, I belong to an NMRA 100% club here on the Central Coast. We've got 32 members. The oldest one is 94. He's our president. You would think he's not that technical, but he's as good as a lot of other people. And we started now on a Wednesday night. We used to have our get together. We can't do that anymore for a number of different reasons. And some of them are getting old and they don't travel so well at night and whatever. And we started up a chat group just like this one. And we've got about 10 of the members who can come on, and we have a good chat, go for a couple of hours sometimes. And it's a great way to keep up with people and find out what they're doing. You just mentioned Laurie McLean. Well, on the, the 27th of the month, when you put my video up, Laurie's layout is in there with all his animation and all the fun stuff. But what I would hope to be doing in this coming week is taking one of these webcams into the train room and have a meeting from there and show some people just running some trains. And then we'll follow you and Martin, where you were driving his trains down in Australia. And yeah, we can have fun and all get on like this. We can all drive one another's trains.
Don't give away our future NMRAX clinics, okay?
Okay.
what everyone can know is that there was a British region meeting this morning where members attending that virtual meeting may have been driving a layout locomotives on a layout in Australia live. And this may well be a future clinic that you need to stay tuned for on NMRAX. But we will keep you up to speed with that. It's only the beginning of some great stuff. I think actually only 2 weeks ago I said on that exact meeting, wouldn't it be great in the next couple of years if we can do a remote operating session during one of these meetings? Well, 2 weeks later, bang, there we go. And that is the pace of change. While the rest of the world stands still, our hobby is steamrolling forward. So it's great. And we'll finish up this question by going to Arthur.
Yeah, we had a Division 1 meeting yesterday, and there were guys there that we'd never see that from up country, and they were able to participate. And the Div Super reported that even in this 3 months of shutdown, we've gained 4 new members. So, and I know others who's because of this NMRAX who also have become members because they can come online and meet and, yep, not real good stuff. So I think it's a plus. It's probably changed our direction a little bit. But, in hard times, you start thinking about what you can do and what you can't do. And I think this is a plus. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur. Okay, so just before we go on to the final question to close out this round of Ask the Master Model Railroad, I just want to remind everyone of what's coming up in our virtual world. So next Saturday, that's the 27th of June. If you're in Australia, it'll be the 27th of June still, but it'll be going into the 28th of June. It's another 12 hours of NMRAX clinics. The schedule will be coming out very, very shortly. It's been finalized for a few days now, so I'm pretty confident that we're not going to have any major hiccups with who's on that list. I can tell you, I feel like Father Christmas every 2 weeks here. It's absolutely cracking. It gets better every time. Great list of clinics. Live on Facebook, live on YouTube. We get a lot of people have seen us, found us on YouTube. If you've not subscribed to the NMRA YouTube channel, go and do it. We've gained some great numbers of subscribers in the last month, and that's great. So we want everyone to go over there. Then you'll get notified when we go live, especially if you don't like Facebook. But anyway, for 6 a.m. Eastern to 6 p.m. Eastern next Saturday, tune in for more NMRAX stuff with your favorite hosts, Brad, Marty, myself, and Speed. And maybe Jordan will make an appearance. We're yet to negotiate with his other half. But that might happen. And then don't forget what's happening in July, because we lost National Convention in St. Louis. Boo. However, we will have NMRAX Gateway X coming to you from July the 12th to July the 18th. It will go from 8 a.m. Eastern to 11 p.m. Eastern every single day. Okay, so we'll be stopping at night. We need to sleep. But it'll be running all the time. It'll be a mix of some pre-recorded stuff that we're recording right now with the clinicians and some live clinics. So there'll be a nice mix. There'll be a panel show every day at 5 o'clock Eastern, which will be 10 o'clock British Summer Time, and some ungodly hour of the morning. I think it's 7 a.m. in Australia, something crazy like that. But it'll work for everybody. So we'll have a panel show. We'll wrap up the day of what's been going on. So stay tuned for more announcements about that. And we're having an actual NMRAX meeting. It's 2 o'clock in the morning nearly in the UK, but we are having a NMRAX team meeting straight after this. And we're going to iron out a few more details. But that's more news about that soon. Just also know that there's future NMRAX events planned for the end of July, in September, and we are working with a large US train show that unfortunately has had to be cancelled in November to provide a virtual train show, probably the first of its kind in the world. So stay tuned, stay with us, there's more to come. So we'll move swiftly on to the last question. You're all limited to one sentence, okay? One sentence on this. What is the one piece of advice you would give somebody who was going to start out in the AP program or who is already participating in the AP program? One sentence. Give you a few seconds to think about that. I'll just keep talking. Right, Mike's put his hand up, so you have to start now. Go, Mike.
Fill out your paperwork and file it and keep it at your fingertips.
Good man. Who wants to go next? Jerry?
Well, John mentioned this earlier. keep a log of what you're actually doing and keep referring to it. And then when you're ready to do the paperwork, then you can go.
Dwayne?
Learn how to put together a good write-up.
Okay. John? You're on mute, John. You're on mute, John. You're on mute, John. You're on mute. John, you're muted.
I would say carefully pick the model that will give you the most points and keep your paperwork on that model.
Thanks, John. That's a great answer.
Yep,
Arthur?
plan it out, check it out, what you think you can do, then look at the things that you can stretch yourself on, but keep records, take photos so that when it comes to time, you've got it all there.
That's great. Thanks, guys.
Gordy,
So,
can I tagline on something for Dwayne real quick?
aye.
There's if you go to the Lone Star Region website, there's a place in there for clinics, and there is a clinic in there online on how to do a write-up.
It's on the contest section, and the link just says read this first, and it's a one-page clinic that I do on how to do a write-up.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, guys. So that's going to be all from us for tonight. Final few things to say. If you are into podcasts, please go and check out our friends at A Modeler's Life podcast. Great supporters of NMRAX from day one. Go and check out what they do and listen to some of their podcasts. Lionel and the crew do a fantastic job and have been putting out lots of extra content during this period of lockdown around the world. So the other things I have to say, which has just completely gone out of my head because I just had the screen completely change on me. The other things I needed to say, of course, if you're not already a member of the NMRA, we really push you to go and join the NMRA. Great organization all around the world. Go and see, go to nmra.org and go and see all the great member benefits we've got there. Check out our partners. If you are an NMRA member, help our partners out during this period of a little bit of slowdown, although it doesn't seem to be very slow in the hobby, but help our people out. The economy is down definitely around the world. Go and help our partners make a purchase. If helps everybody out. And if you want to support NMRAX, go to daylightsales.net. It's daylightsales.net. Go and buy yourself some great swag. And I can't wait. I hope I can come to Springfield in January and we're allowed out of the country again, or even off the island. I can't wait to see everybody in NMRAX tops. It's going to be great. So go do that. And of course, if you are a master model railroader and you want to get involved in a panel like this, if you want to be on a panel like this and you're not a master model railroader, you can be, but not on Ask the Master Model Railroader, but you can be during Gateway X. Get in touch with us through NMRA's social media. Send us a message on Facebook or drop us an email. The contact details for Christina Zambri, our marketing consultant who funnels all emails to me for NMRAX, is available on our website, and that's nmra.org. If you missed it, the amount of times I've said it, you shouldn't have done, but anyway, nmra.org. If you want to give an NMRAX clinic, we really encourage people to have a go. Nobody had done this 3 months ago, apart from a few people that had done virtual clinics to the Australian region and to the British region. Really, this was unheard of. So everyone's learning here. Even if you've given a clinic 1,000 times, I guarantee you've never given a clinic to 400 people. Okay, and that's the advantage that NMRAX gives you. You can get AP points, you can claim for author, or you can claim for volunteer, depending on whether you've given the clinic and claim for it. You can't claim for both, you can claim for one, so everyone benefits. Okay, and the one final little piece on clinics is a lot of people have been saying to me, well, everybody knows this. I guarantee you that there will be something in your clinic that somebody takes away from it. So all that we're about here is sharing knowledge, sharing it freely. There's no one getting a gain, there's no one on the take here. We're doing this all for free, for the benefit of the hobby and for the benefit of the people in it. So get involved and keep modeling. So thank you everyone on the panel. Thank you for taking part. We're going to cut over to a bit of our outtake now, and we'll let everybody relax for the rest of the evening. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for putting all this together, Gordy.
Absolutely. Good job, Gordy.
Yeah, thanks, Gordy.
Yep, thanks, Gordy. Thanks, boys. It's been awesome to have something like this that we can share with everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
All right, Marty, that's a wrap. Cut.